I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how burial was done in the time of Christ. And to have that conversation, I wanted you guys to go over here and check out this tomb where this is not the Garden Tomb. This is another tomb nearby. It's on the west side of the city near the King David Hotel, if you want to find it yourself. Referred to sometimes as the tomb of Herod. It has nothing to do with Herod. There's absolutely no evidence for that. Herod was in all likelihood buried at Herodian. What it is, it's, to the best of my knowledge, the largest intact rolling rock tomb we've got. So the tomb at the Garden Tomb, there's a stone there, but it's not the one original to that place. It was brought in from another place, just as an illustration. This one is that is the stone that was made to close this hole, that is still sitting in the trough there, which is actually really, really fascinating and interesting archaeologically. If you look around here and you notice the rocks all around us, it's all limestone. This whole country is limestone. There may be an inch or two of topsoil to grow some grass on, but once you get under that, it gets really hard, really fast. And so digging tombs was not something that could be done quickly. Digging tombs was something that had to be done far in advance. In Judaism, as well as in Islam, by the way, today, the rule is that when someone dies, they pass away, they are to be buried that day before the sun goes down. Okay? The family is to prepare the body, clean the body, and put you almost immediately into the grave. So if that's the imperative, to bury day of death, then you cannot possibly in this country begin digging on the day of death. You prepared tombs well in advance. It was incredibly difficult work. You've got to think, you've got a hammer and a chisel, you're chopping away, it's stone, clearing it out, chopping away, clearing it out, and it would take a lot of man hours to dig a hole as big as what we see here and to prepare an entrance like this. It would take a long time and a lot of man hours. And so most families, this is obviously the burial of a very, very wealthy man, whoever it was. They were very wealthy to hire this much work done for a tomb. But all families had to be able to bury. And so what typical people did was they found a rock facing kind of like this. Now this has been carved out at some time. This is not, totally natural, but they would find a cliff face or something like this, and they would dig directly into it. Okay, almost like a shelf, straight back into it. And when a member of the family died, you would be placed into that shelf cut into the rock. They would place you in there, they would seal it. In the case of the fancy one back here, they'd seal it with this big rolling stone. If it was a poorer family, they might seal it some other way, but you were encased. The way Jewish bodies were prepared for burial actually speeded decomposition, didn't slow it, like what Egyptians did, for instance. So you would decompose, fairly rapidly. They would come back a year later, and they would actually take your bones from the grave. Okay, all of you will be the bones. They would take your bones, they would place them in a box called an ossuary. Okay, that box only had to be as long as your femur, which is the longest bone in your body, so your upper leg. They would place the bones in that box, and the box will be kept there at the place of burial, and your family would reuse the tomb. Okay, and then over time, you have more and more of these boxes, the ossuaries, where people had died, but you would reuse the tomb. That's the reason the Bible says that Jesus was buried in the tomb of a rich man that had never been used. It was a new tomb. For us, all tombs are new. We don't rebury. They reuse tombs because it was so difficult to make one. Okay, so that's neat. And there's one more thing in sort of the apologetic record regarding burial, and that is something that was discovered actually quite recently. And there was a long-running issue raised by skeptics. Skeptics would say the story of Jesus' burial makes no sense. This is not possible. This is not what Romans did. And their objection was this. They would say Jesus was crucified. The purpose of crucifixion was humiliation and dehumanization. And the victims of crucifixion were never allowed a proper, nice burial. They were always sort of discarded into large mass, basically trenches, group mass burials. So then they reasoned there is no way Jesus could have been buried in the tomb of a rich man in a garden, the way it's described in the Bible. They said that is not plausible, that's not right, that didn't happen. Well, then the archaeologists got to digging up things around here. And here's what they found. This I've seen this with my eyes. It's over at the Israel Museum. They found one of these bone boxes, and it was a nice one. You know, it was well carved. It was clearly the bone box of someone from a wealthy family, from a connected family. And in the bone box, they found a foot, you know, a remnants of a foot, the bones, and driven through the foot was a nail, clearly from crucifixion. And, you know, basically what it looked like was that when the nail was driven through this person's foot, that it must have hit a knot in the wood, and the tip of the nail was turned. And so there was no way to remove the nail from the foot without ripping the foot. And whoever did the burial didn't want to do that. They left it in. And so because of this, then, you know, for 2,000 years or however long it was, it sat in the box there, and we found it. But it's very important to us as Christians because it verifies the fact that wealthy families were able to get access to the bodies of their loved ones and to bury them properly. And in this case, clearly a rich family, but that would match the story in the Bible where you know, Jesus was buried, you know, by a rich man. So I think that's also a really nice apologetic for us as we sort of think about where Jesus was buried, how he was buried. You know, the fact that it says it was a new tomb, that's because it was a rich man who could afford to dig something really, really nice that had never been used before. And all the pieces sort of fit together with the history and with what we know of how they bury the practices here. So that's really cool. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, click like and subscribe. It really helps us. And if you really enjoyed it, go on over to our website, thelandofthebible.com, and become a supporter. It helps us generate more content and gives you access to our full library of video and Bible study content.